Hey everyone, welcome to Cuberviews episode 34. This is your host, Ian Braverman. I hope you're having a great day. Today I am joined by Anna Schwalenberg to discuss the Ixalan-M20 Cube. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah, of course. We met at Boston Cube Party, and I didn't have a chance to play your cube, but after talking to you a bit, I was really interested. I find unique cubes that have different time restrictions, like this cube, like timing restrictions of sets, to be really interesting. So I wanted to have you on.
Yeah, it'll be fun to talk about.
Yeah, and how did you like Boston Cube Party?
It was a lot of fun. I'm friends with the organizers, Gwen and Ollie. So Ollie, in fact, had asked me to judge the original one. And I was like, no, I want to play in it.
Very cool. And what were some cubes that you played there?
I started off by going 0-3 in my favorite cube, which is a great start, which was Invading Dominaria. I played Bodleian, which is a favorite.
Bodleian's fun. I like that cube. Yeah. I did it twice, actually, while I was there.
I don't blame you. It's very good. I did Tiny Leaders, Delver Cube, and I slept through the Sunday morning cube because I needed to sleep.
Totally understandable. I mean, it's a lot of drafts. I was in top 64, so I was like, all right, I need to wake up. But otherwise, it's nice to sleep in a little late. I mean, you're just playing in the free play otherwise, so you can get there a little late.
Yeah.
And do you plan on going to other cube events like CubeCon or anything?
Probably not. I don't travel very much, so there's something, in Boston or in reasonable train range, I might do it, but
There's a lot of cube events in New England. I feel very happy to be in this area where there's a lot of cube.
That is true.
And speaking of this area, if you happen to be in the area of Connecticut, we're always looking for more cubers. Games IRL in Avon, Connecticut. Come join us. Reach out if you want to come join us. And Anna, tell me about your history with Magic, Cube, and also judging.
Yeah. So I started playing Magic in like Odyssey Onslaught era in middle school when my friends taught me to play. And I played a lot of it. My friends mostly played like casual constructed. And then I started going to a store and drafting, which meant that I was better than all my friends and had a bigger collection than them, but I was worse than everybody who actually played. And then around when Mirrodin came out, I hated Mirrodin. So I quit the game, which is one of my biggest mistakes. Around 2015, some friends said, hey, you used to play Magic, right? Yeah, you'd probably like this Hearthstone game. I was like, oh, yeah, I'll try that. And I really liked that. And I played a lot of that. And in fact, had a Hearthstone podcast for 2 years.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yes. Called Play for Tempo. Most of it is completely outdated stuff at this point, but there are some good mindset episodes in there that might be worth listening back to. And then around 2018, the Hearthstone meta was awful. And also Arena had just come out. So I was like, all right, I'll play some Arena. And then I started playing more Magic again, less Hearthstone. Became a judge in sort of late 2019. Judged one event before COVID.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Yes. Yeah, since then, I now am the regular Sunday judge at my LGS and run a cube event about half of Sundays. If there's a big tournament, it takes over the space. But Pandemonium Books and Games, Cambridge, if you're in the area.
Very cool. And how long have you been doing cube for?
Around sort of just after COVID restrictions were starting to lift, someone posted in the LGS Discord being like, yo, we need some extra people for cube. And I had always been like vaguely interested in playing because I play limited and constructed and all the things. I joke that I play every format except Commander and Legacy, not pre-moderns. I'm sorry. I need to add one now that people ask about. But so I was like, oh yeah, I'll play. And the person who was organizing was like, oh yeah, Schwal, you're cool. Come on. Played that, had a great time. I think it was a vintage cube where I went 2-1 with mono green with land destruction. If there's land destruction in your cube, I will love you and you should probably take it out. And then I have just played lots and lots and lots of cubes since then.
What is the most memorable or difficult judge call you ever gotten?
I'm filling in judging Modern on Tuesday Night Modern. I am on crutches. And so I say before the event starts, okay, if you have a judge call that only involves like 1 or 2 cards, just bring them up to me. It'll be a lot faster. And like 2 minutes into the round, one of my friends raises their hand, yells judge. And I'm like, what? I'm on crutches. Like, why are you doing this? Okay, whatever. I go over there and there's like 3 cards on the table. I'm just like, Daniel, why? And then he goes, so yeah, I played this 1-drop and my opponent mental misstepped it. And I'm like, Fair. Now I understand why you called the judge. Good call. Good call.
Oh,
And it turned out his opponent had last played this deck in 2010, in the 6 months that Mental Misstep was legal, and had not updated it since.
oh wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
I had to be like, yeah, all right, well, those are basic lands now.
Wow. That was round one, right at the very
Yes,
beginning.
that was round one.
Oh no. 2010, that's crazy. I mean, that's awesome to just bring your old deck to an event and say, screw it, I'm going to play.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's awesome. And what do you do for work? And what are some of your hobbies outside of Cube and Magic?
For work, I'm freelance tech support and judging. Outside of Magic, I read a lot, watch F1 and IndyCar. That's pretty much it.
Very cool. Have you ever been to an F1?
No, I've been to one IndyCar race in Detroit last year. Went there specifically because the friend who got me into racing lives there. So that was a fun weekend.
Nice. Did the car you want win?
No, the actual race was terrible. All the organization, everything else about it, the crowds, everything was great. The actual race, awful.
Oh
Nothing happened.
no. I feel like that's definitely a fear I've had when I want to go to like a live sports event or something. Like you pay like a ton of money to go to see like a semi-final or something, and then it's a horrible match. It's over in 20 minutes, and it's like, why did I spend this $1,000 on tickets or whatever? Very cool. And yeah, today I'm excited to be talking with you about the Ixalan to M20 Standard Cube. What was the inspiration behind this cube? What about this time period made you want to build a cube around it?
Yeah. So I started off being like, I want to build a cube, but this is Boston and we have a lot of cubes. And it's like, we don't need another vintage cube. We don't need another legacy cube. We have 5 of those. We don't need another pauper cube. We have 10 of those. You know, what can I do? And I was like, I could build a modern cube. We don't really have one of those. And I looked at modern and I was like, I like modern. I play modern. I cannot make this into an interesting cube. Turns out one of your other guests made modern into an interesting cube. And I didn't have the guts to do that.
Shout out to Austin Hale.
Yeah. Bones made a cube now that I now really want to play since listening to that episode. And then I was like, all right, can't do that. Pioneer has similar problems where like the decks play very few overlapping cards. And so like if I wanted to make a cube that felt like a format rather than just be cards from a format, I couldn't really do Pioneer. Since then, a friend has built a Pioneer cube the way you would actually do it, which is to say that it's cards with Pioneer legality, and then you build a normal cube. And I think that is a perfectly reasonable way to approach building any other cube. But I was like, but I want it to be about the format. So I was like, all right, so I think I can build a standard cube. The problem is standard is awful right now at the time. Standard's okay right now. The prowess is very good. But
what was the standard format at the time?
I think this was still when Fable of the Mirror Breaker was legal, so that it was like 50% Rakdos.
Oof.
And the only way you won was by building bigger and bigger Rakdos. So like the best deck was Rakdos Reanimator.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a very interesting cube. It's all Rakdos. Except I have a Rakdos cube, so I don't know. But
yes, but imagine a Rakdos cube. It was like a 70 card Rakdos cube. That might actually not be that bad if you built it like a 1v1 cube. I don't know. This is not the worst idea we've ever had. Okay. That said, I wanted to build a cube for more than 2 people. So I was like, okay. The last standard I really enjoyed was around Ixalan through M20, which was, not unsurprisingly, also around when I was starting to play standard. This has a few things going for it. Number one is 4 of the 5 colors had monocolor aggro or tempo decks, or Stompy for the green ones that played nowhere else. And the 5th color, black, while did not have a meta deck that did that, one of my friends built a mono red standard deck and like played it at locals, and it was like pretty good. So like that was fine. It had a bunch of like 2-color synergy decks, like Is It Phoenix, Golgari Explorer, Orzhov Vampires, Rakdos Sack, though it was never that good. It had a bunch of 3-color control decks that were just like, which 3 colors do you like, including blue? And you can play a control deck with that, and it's fine. And it also had 5-color nonsense with Golos Fields of the Dead for the last little bit of the format. I was like, cool. So that means I can kind of like build a cube that includes all of that. And that was more or less the design process for this cube. So I was like, I can replicate most of that pretty well in a cube reasonably easily. The thing is that My design process, much like Austin's, was looking at MTG Top 8 a lot and essentially putting in every card in the queue that was in an MTG Top 8 list from the time. And that gets you to like 200 cards. And then I go, okay, so what are the archetypes I need to fill out? Because like you only played like 5 vampires, and clearly that's not going to cut it.
Vampires ish.
Yeah. So like I added a bunch more vampires. I added a bunch more explore cards. I added a few more Izzet spells cards for Phoenix. The Phoenix deck in the cube is just spells, but it has one copy of Arclight Phoenix. So I, filled out the rest of those. That got me most of the way there. And I was like, okay. And now I'm just going to put in the rest of the cards that people remember from this era that they think are cool. And that was the rest of it. So this is essentially cards and decks from that era that people think are cool, except Nexus of Fate, because nobody thinks that's cool. And nobody wants to play against that.
Hey, I think that's cool. All right.
I
totally see it not being cool.
I own a copy of Nexus of Fate for the day I am feeling evil, but I have not yet put it in the queue.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really cool design process of looking to see which standard format was diverse enough to be able to have a wide variety of decks. Like you were saying, there are definitely standard formats, like kind of like the one we're in right now, where one deck is hugely dominant. Like, Izzet Prowess is like 40% of the most recent event that just happened in SCG Hartford. And then there's Mono Red and a few
I
other
played Prowess
decks.
in SCG Hartford. I can confirm this. I played the mirror 3 times in 7 rounds.
Oh, yeah. So I don't know how interesting a cube that would be unless you made it a Prowess cube. But I mean,
probably not that interesting.
Yeah. But this format, I actually have a good amount of nostalgia for. Like at this time, I was playing Esper Hero Precinct 1, which I definitely see is supported in here, having a ton of multicolored cards like Big Teferi, Little Teferi, Thief of Sanity, Enter the God Eternals. These are all cards that just get me so excited and nostalgic about this time period. And there were also a ton of just like other really cool decks at the time, like having a Gates deck with things like Gatebreaker Ram, like you mentioned, Explore decks with Wild Growth Walker, Jade Light Ranger, Gruul Smash decks with Gruul Spellbreaker, Spellslinger aggro decks with Crackling Drake, Beacon Bolt, Grixis control decks with Nicol Bolas. There was such a wide variety of really interesting decks. What was the meta like at this time period? Was it a pretty diverse meta? Did a wide variety of decks do well?
Oh, yeah, it was very diverse. This is taking meta decks from an entire 1 year period, essentially. So were Vampires decks good at the same time that, say, Golgari Explorer was good? No. But they were both good in this era. Gates in particular is a little weird in that it is mostly a sub package that gets played in the Golos Field of the Dead 5-color soup decks and is not really good enough to play on its own. But Golgari soup 5-color decks are good if you're not getting cut, which let me tell you, about half the time we play this cube, 2 people try to draft that deck and both of them end up with terrible decks.
I mean, I definitely remember a Gates deck being played by like Saffron Olive MTG Goldfish and seeing some fun stuff.
It was, yeah, about that level.
And what deck were you playing at this time?
Oh, I was a Izzet Phoenix main. I bought the Izzet Phoenix Precon for $30.
Oh, yep, the Challenger decks.
Yeah, the Challenger deck. And I played that for 2 weeks and I was like, cool. I need to spend the, $130 to buy the meta version of this deck. And I did. And then I have rarely stopped playing Phoenix since and almost never stopped playing Izzet since either. So yeah, it was a good choice.
I bet you were happy about Faithless Looting being unbanned in Modern then.
Yes, I tried to play Izzet Phoenix again. It was fun and bad.
I saw Aspiring Spike doing some stuff with it.
Yeah. He is one of those people who is like, a new card that might work for Izzet Phoenix. I have to try this. And then it doesn't work.
Yep. And tell me about the different places that you took cards from to build this cube. Like you said that you took a lot of cards from MTG Top 8. Did you also take cards that were popular in these individual draft formats, like the limited sets for these cards, or looking at not only cards that were good in the standard format, but these cards that were playable outside of standard at the time? Tell me about where the cards came from to build this cube.
Yeah, like I said, most of them were from, cards in meta decks and standard. 1 or 2 that were played in other formats, but not many. They definitely got filled out by popular cards, both from limited and also just like Yargle.
Yargle. He's ready to
Making,
bargle.
yeah, as I like to say, making Yargle jokes was a key part of the standard environment. And so
Oh
I
yeah.
needed to include that. Basically, there are a bunch of like popular, powerful cards that were never really in a standard deck, but like they were popular and powerful and like some of the best cards in their limited environment that get included, like God Eternal Oketra or Divine Visitation. It's like this was not a standard deck, but it's really cool. So I got to include it. And yeah, I just found those by, looking at the Scryfall lists of all these sets. There is a rule that every card in this cube, the printing is from the standard of the era. There are like 4 or 5 promos that were out at the time. There is one card that at the time, the version that had the standard printing was like 10 times more, which was Doom Whisperer. It is now 50 cents again. And my most recent TCG Players order, I was like, great, I can finally get that. And I ordered like a bunch of standard cards and that. And then I got a mail saying, yeah, your order got canceled. We couldn't find the card. I was like,
no.
okay, whatever. And I was like, oh, which card was it? Oh, it was the one card for my cube. Okay, well, good. Don't need it to play in Hartford.
Doom Whisperer is still a house. That card's awesome.
Yeah, that card is crazy. There is one card in this cube that was not actually printed at this era. Legion Vanguard? 1 a black, 2/2 vampire. 1 sack another creature, explore.
Oh, yeah.
I put this in accidentally. I built this cube before LCI. And so I was like, I just searched for explore. And this card is from MH2. So I just like searched Scryfall for explore and was like adding cards for that. And I saw that and I was like, oh yeah, perfect. I support sacrifice and explore and vampires. Like I can't not put those in. Great. And didn't think about it. And then when I was going through and doing the versioning to make sure I had the correct version of everything, I was like, oh wait, that wasn't in standard. Oh.
Oops.
Well, I can't really cut this at this point. It's like too good. It fits the skew perfectly. All right. Sure.
It's like a little joke that you can pepper in. It's like if you can figure out which card wasn't actually in the standard format, you get a little prize.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking about nostalgia, was nostalgia like a big part of building this cube? You mentioned trying to pick out cards outside of cards that were in the MTG top 8, but cards that were really memorable. Did you include cards that maybe didn't fit your design goals and maybe weren't completely fitting into your archetypes because they were just so nostalgic that you just felt like you had to put it in?
To an extent, the fact that essentially all the 3-color control decks are essentially all just like piles of good cards and were at the time meant that like I can put in another random good card that people liked and nobody's really going to look twice at that. I really had an out there.
Yeah, that's true. Another part of this cube that's pretty cool is there are small kindred packages themes peppered in throughout it. Like, for example, I saw that you have Wizard's Retort, Wizard's Lightning, and a few wizards packed in there. Siege Gang Commander with cards like Legion Warboss, Krenko 10th Street Kingpin, so goblins, even like Verdant Force, Tendershoot Dryad, and some Saprolings. Tell me about these small kindred themes, and were these decks at the time in standard? Why did you include these and how do they feel in the gameplay?
Wizards was like, sometimes you would play the Wizards package in an Izzet deck, aggro deck. It was never particularly good. Goblins was never a thing. Saprolings was definitely never a thing. Risen Reef, I'm not actually sure if there's a second elemental in the entire cube.
Oh,
The Sacrifice Mask makes an element.
oh, yep.
The small Chandra.
Oh, yeah. Chandra Echo Flame, too. That's really good with Risen Reef. Making 2 elementals every turn. That's gas.
Yes, but like these were mostly not deliberate and were just put in because individual cards were powerful. Legion Warboss was like the second or third best uncommon in original Dominaria draft and was just like, yeah, I need some more medium-sized red cards. Sure, I'll put in Legion Warboss, and it works with Sack. They sort of came together accidentally. The Wizard's Retort, Wizard's Lightning, and some Wizards was mostly just like, I need more spells for Izzet spells. This was all a good package in Dominaria draft, sure. And like Wizard's Lightning and Wizard's Retort are just fine cards if you have to play them without Wizards. So
yeah, totally. I mean, you don't feel bad about having to play a 3-mana bolt that occasionally is 1 mana, and that's a really good rate. Or cancel's fine. And if it becomes counterspell, that's great too.
Exactly.
And Tendershoot Dryad is a really another fun one. I love these cards that are good in a kindred package for an archetype of a creature type. Like, for example, Tendershoot Dryad is a 5 mana 2/2 in green, and you get a sapling every turn. And then if you have the City's Blessing, all your saplings get +2/+2. And then you can just throw in a few other sapling makers, and it becomes like a little archetype, like Verdant Force, making more saplings every turn. I think that's a lot of fun.
For sure.
And I'm a big fan of having overall overarching themes in Cube. Like in my Peasant Cube, I have a cycling theme in Jeskai, and also it extends into multiple different colors. And I just include a lot of cards that are generically powerful with cycling. Like, for example, removal spells that have cycling or counter spells that have cycling. And then just have to put in a few little payoffs. Like, for example, Zenith Flare. That's just a fun card that I can throw in at uncommon. It can just be a win con. And if you happen to get enough cycling cards, you get to have a lot of fun with it. And this cube has that here too with the gates deck. You have the 10 gate fixing lands, also a few other gates like Gateway Plaza also. And then I see a few big payoffs that you get paid off for having gates, like the Ram we mentioned, Gate Colossus, Circuitous Route. Tell me about this overarching theme of gates across the colors and how it plays out.
Yeah, so I think it's worth saying that the fixing in this standard was largely shock lands and check lands. That was what people played. Gates were also in standard. So when I first built this cube, I was like, great, one of each. One shock, one check, one gate. And the fixing was not good enough. And I was like, okay, let's add a second copy of all the checks. That'll work. And that was fine. 4 land cycles in 360 worked perfectly for what I was trying to do. Though effectively was that gates being significantly worse than chocks and checks, they were getting picked fairly lower. And so I was expecting them to be picked up by the Golos Field of the Dead deck, fairly highly, or at least they were going to get more of it. And I was also like, and the Golos Field of the Dead deck is like, if Field of the Dead is not yet online, what are you doing? And the answer is casting okay cards in a lot of colors. Obviously, you can do that just fine. If your mana is good enough, that'll work. But there's nothing particularly interesting about that happening. So I was like, okay, but if we add the Gates cards, which is like 3 cards, it's like Gatebreaker Ram, Gate Colossus, and Gates Ablaze, plus Circuitous Route, which can search up gates. That is cards that you're basically only going to pick if you're 5-color gates for Golos Field of the Dead. And then you get to play all these gate payoff cards. And nobody else is going to pick them, so you will get A, more interesting gameplay, and B, essentially free late picks in the draft if you're in this archetype, which has worked out pretty well. I've been fairly happy with how that's done.
That's pretty cool. Like giving the lands in the cube, fixing lands that normally, they're just a land, another purpose, especially because, like you mentioned, gates are definitely on the surface less powerful than shocks. And you could just put in a ton of shocks and a ton of check lands. But I think it's really cool what you did here to give these gates a reason to be drafted and almost make them like an archetype role player too.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool. And another thing here that we just started to get into a little bit was, I know some cube designers avoid 5 colors. I'm not one of them. I love Golos. I think it's so fun. But it looks like this cube really embraces 5 color. Like we mentioned, Niv, to be able to search up Field of the Dead. Also cards like Hero of Precinct 1 that wants you to play a lot of multicolor cards. Tell me about supporting 5 colors as an archetype, and what cards do you throw in to actually push players into it and make players realize, oh, I want to play 5 colors, because it's kind of a leap of faith to go 5 colors.
Yeah. So I think the things you need to make players go 5 colors are, 1, enough lands. This is fairly self-explanatory. The other thing, you often need like a jumping off point, especially if you do not have fetches in your cube. If you're a cube with fetches, there are people, and I know plenty of them, who will be like, sure, I will take 5 fetch lands to start my draft, and then I will play every card I want. And I'm like, great, cool for you. I'm not that person. Also, this cube doesn't have fetch lands in it. So are you going to take a bunch of random shocks and checks this early? Probably not. So what you need is a jumping off point to play 5 colors. And as you said, in this cube, that is basically Field of the Dead, Niv Mizzet Reborn, Golos. Those 3 cards. Hero Precinct 1 being a white 2-mana 2/2 with upside is fairly highly contested and as often ends up in a deck where it makes 1 or 2 tokens a game.
I mean, it's still a good card.
Yeah, it's still a very good card, but often is not being played by the 5-color player. And so when people see one of those cards, usually their first reaction, if they haven't played the cube before, is to ask me, is this supported? And I will go, yes. And then they will go, cool, pick that card. And then they will try to do the thing.
I see Niv Mizzet and I'm taking it. No question.
Yeah. Honestly, one of the weirder things about this cube is that, like, if you look at the color balance, most of the cube is relatively color balanced. There's like two or three more cards in the color with more cards than the other ones. Like there's 49 black cards, 48 blue white, 49 red, 47 green. The multicolor cards are completely different. There are 10 Orzhov cards. There are 2 Selesnya cards. We only put in the cards for like archetypes people will actually play or just really cool cards. And like Selesnya is not supported on its own in this cube. If you want to play white and green together, you should probably play at least in one other color, probably 2, probably 3, honestly. I think that is an often underexplored thing you can do is like you can keep your main colors balanced and then completely just not support a 2-color archetype. Like you don't have to have one.
Yeah, that's a really interesting design choice. So do you find that because some colors have more 2-color cards, like Izzet has 9, Orzhov has 10, Dimir has 7, and then like you said, like Selesnya has 2, Gruul has 4, Rakdos has 4. Do players tend to navigate toward these multicolored decks? Are these a signpost that get people into these colors more often than the colors that don't have the other 2 colors as much?
Yes. So the actual way a draft ends up playing out most of the time is that about half the time there will be a monocolor player playing a monocolor deck. There will generally be 2 or 3 people playing 2-color streamline decks. Often one of those is it, though not always. And then there will be 1 or 2 people trying to play 5-color.
Oh, a lot of people. Wow.
Almost always 1, often 2. If there's 2, they're usually both bad.
Yep. One gets Niv, one gets Golos.
I have seen so many drafts of this cube where one person got Field of the Dead and one person got Golos, and they were both very sad.
Oh, no.
Essentially, you know, the other 3 or 4 drafters will be playing a 3-color pile in big mid-range control area of whatever's open. That is very often the colors with a bunch of cool multicolor cards, but not always.
Yeah. And on the other side of the spectrum, like you just mentioned, this cube does have 1-color decks, like we talked about. For example, I think it's really interesting how you've included Tempest Djinn, which is blue, blue, blue for a 0/4 flyer, and it gets +1/+0 for each basic island you control. If this card doesn't scream go mono blue, I don't know what else does. So I think it's really interesting because so many people talk about including in their cubes 2-color or 3-color multicolor cards to say, hey, you can go this 2-color pair, and this is what this 2-color pair does, similar to how in Limited there are signpost uncommons. But I feel like it's underappreciated or under talked about having signpost 1-color cards to say, hey, you can go mono blue or you can go mono green, or that's very common, I feel, in mono red, especially. Like this cube has Runaway Steamkin, which says, hey, you're going red and you're going to play red cards. But I think it's super cool to have something like Tempest Djinn in here.
Yeah, I was helped out here by the original Dominaria cycle of triple pipped cards that were all 3-drops. Tempest Djinn, Goblin War Leader.
Goblin Chain Whirler, that card.
Or Goblin
slaps.
Chain Whirler,
I
rather,
love that
yes.
card.
Benalish Marshal in white. Steel Leaf Champion in green. And then the black one is awful. It is a 3/3 that pumps for a single black.
Oh.
And so that one is not in the cube, but black gets Rotting Regisaur in the 3-drop slot, so I don't care that much.
Hey, that card's crazy. I've played that card in Vintage Cube.
Yeah. There's actually a funny story about mono blue in particular, is that when I built this cube, I was like, okay, I'm like not sure that mono blue tempo is going to work. In particular, this is why there are 4 copies of Fairy Miscreant in the cube. Was like,
yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
I needed a way to make mono blue like actually function. And that was like a key part of that standard deck, was having 4 copies of Fairy Miscreant. And I was like, I could just put 4 copies in the deck, and I'm like pretty low on blue creatures, and I need something to make this work. All right, I'll try it. And it worked out very well, and I have been very happy with that choice. But I was like,
it's so fun to have cards like this that care about specifically having multiples of itself. Like this card says, if you have another creature named Fairy Miscreant, you draw a card when it enters. Like I
Yeah.
think that it adds a challenge to players in the draft. How many of this can I get and how many can I draw?
Yeah. Mono blue has ended up being one of the most likely monocolored decks to be drafted because of that. I built the cube. I was like, okay, I'm not sure mono blue tempo is going to work. But if it doesn't work, I'm fine because there are a ton of blue artifact cards in the standard. That was never a deck that I saw anyone play or talk about. But there are tons of cards for it looking through the card file. And I'm like, which makes me wonder is like, did they design a mono blue artifacts deck like in R&D that just nobody ever played?
Oh,
I was like, maybe was this an undiscovered deck at the time or something? I don't know, maybe. But I was like, okay, so if this doesn't work, it's fine. I would rather it work because, it was a huge thing at the time. Autumn Burchett winning the Pro Tour with it was very famous. And when she was just utterly destroying people with that deck by
I hated
playing.
that deck. I'm going to be honest. I hated playing against that deck. That deck was miserable. The Curious Obsession deck. Oh, I hated that deck.
But yeah, so like it was a big part of that standard. So I wanted to include it. But if it didn't work, fine, I had the back. And so the first draft we do of this cube, someone comes up to me and they're like, they have drafted this deck. And I go, oh, neat. I was kind of worried it wasn't going to work. And they look at me and go, if I 3-0 this draft, you're not allowed to cut it. And I was like, deal. And they 3-0 the draft. Good. I'm done. Need to put in that extra land cycle and then I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah. Tell me about including a deck like Mono Blue Tempo that is so all in on one strategy. Like basically the whole deck's purpose was get a 1-drop, put a Curious Obsession on it, draw cards, protect it, and then play counter spells and eventually kill your opponent. It was kind of like Boggles in a way. Tell me about including a cube deck like that and supporting something like that.
Basically, once I had the idea of, well, I can just put in 4 Fairy Miscreants, that really just solved all the problems of the deck. Like it now draws enough to find the curiosity. Basically, once I had figured out how to, get enough card draw for you to reliably draw the curiosity, this basically just works. Like I put in a bunch of counter spells, I put in a bunch of protection for your creature with curiosity on it, and the deck just worked.
Yeah, I mean, that's super cool. I think it's fun to try and include niche archetypes like that players, unless they played the standard at that time, might not have been exposed to something like that. I feel like we haven't seen a deck that really looks like something like that in a long time. So it's cool to be able to support that.
Pauper players know it all too well, but standard, no.
Yes, definitely. So tell me about the complexity budget in this cube, because when I'm looking at a lot of the cards in this cube, it feels like not a lot of cards feel like they have a mountain of text on them. A lot of these cards feel like they're kind of simple reading them. They're, hey, counter target spell unless they pay 2, or deal 2 damage to any target, or gain control of target creature. Did you purposely build this cube to have a lower complexity compared to, I feel like a lot of cubes that I play now, or cubes that don't really have as much of a focus on that, can be mountains of text on the cards?
So that was largely an accident of it being set in this time before they started adding a lot more text to cubes. That said, this is an area of cube design I am actually very big on, which is reduce the text on the cards you are putting in your cubes. Like there is almost no cube where you should put Anguish Unmaking in the cube. You should always put Vindicate in the cube because it is shorter. They are almost the same card, but Vindicate is less words on it to do the same thing. So you should put Vindicate in the cube and not Anguish on it. This is a thing I am very big on. There are some minor edge cases cards here and there where I made that choice, but for the most part, it just ended up like that because that's what the card says. That said, there's a difference between the complexity in the draft, which is what that reduces, and the complexity in gameplay, which that doesn't really affect that much. Let me tell you, this cube has some very grindy games. This cube makes so many tokens.
Yes.
And the board states get out of control. And there is plenty enough complexity with that as there is. I do not need more words on cards to do.
Yeah, my friend Sam, he was on episode 1 of the podcast talking about a Circle of Life cube. He also has a cube called the 5 Below cube, which it has every card in the cube has to be 5 lines of text or less. And I will say, playing that cube, it really has a different vibe to it because the cards don't do everything. Most cards have one effect compared to, oh, it has hexproof and it has haste. And when you attack, you get a treasure. And when it dies, you draw 2 cards. And whenever you sack a permanent, you gain a life. When you have less cards and cubes that kind of do everything and are a mountain and kind of like an engine in themselves, and instead you include just kind of cards that have one thing, and then you have to find ways to find synergies between them. Like, for example, I love some of these clean card designs like Ravenous Chupacabra. 2 black, black, 2/2. When it enters, destroy a creature an opponent controls. That card is great. It has 3 lines of text, but there's so much you can do with that card. You can blink it, you can sacrifice it. It's a great card, even if it only has 3 lines of text. I totally agree. So tell me about some of the challenges you faced when designing this cube. Like, one question that I had for you is, with this being such a smaller range of sets, only a few years, did that have making a density of some effects difficult? Like, for example, when I had Austin on for the Museum of Modern, shout out to Judge Bones, he actually includes a lot of duplicates of cards to avoid playing less optimal versions of cards. For example, he said, why would I have Lightning Strike when I have Lightning Bolt? I can just include multiple Lightning Bolts. What are some of the challenges you faced when designing this cube?
I listened to that episode and went, that would be an interesting way to make like a version 2 of this cube. In particular, like the last 20 cards I had to add to fill out various archetypes, they're mostly not that great. I was like listening to that going, I could just play multiple copies of the cards. That's not actually the worst idea. I might try that someday. You feel it in like the archetypes, especially vampires and explorer, but you also feel it in 2 other areas, which is counterspells and removal. So there are not many counterspells in this cube, and there are not much removal in this cube. And they are high picks, and that leads to very big board states, because if you can't counter and remove something, it's hitting the board. I occasionally joke that I am not actually good at playing this cube, because even though I know what's good in the cube, I am not good at playing grindy mid-range games. And that's really what a lot of this cube's games come down to. And, this is not my strength as a Magic player. And so I was like, if I just like double or triple up on some removal and counter spells, less so the counter spells, and also just like some of the archetype cards that need a little more support, that would be a way to speed up this cube's gameplay, which I am not opposed to doing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting part. Like, when you look at a standard format, like if you look at today's standard format, every deck plays the same removal and the same counter spells. It's whatever's the most efficient. Like, every deck is playing cut down.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the best removal spells. So a lot of the removal spells just kind of get forgotten about, or there's usually only a couple really good efficient removal spells in a standard.
Yeah. That was definitely listening to the Judge Bones episode. I was like, that would be a way to radically redo this cube. I would need to make 20 or 30 card changes at least, but I'm very tempted.
Yeah.
I just have to build 2 other cubes first, and then I'll go back and do this.
I totally feel that. Yeah. So, like, for example, in my Proliferate cube, I have multiple Volt charges because I wanted to have enough of a density of actual cards that say Proliferate on them. And in red, there's only like 2 or 3 cards that can actually proliferate. So that's another reason that I like doing duplicates. And that's another thing that I could totally see being in a cube like this.
Yeah, definitely.
And let's jump into a pack one, pick one from the cube. And I got the pack here. I'll read it off. We have Dragon Skull Summit, the black-red check land. Sulphur Falls, which is the blue-red check land. Shifting Ceratops, 2 green, 5/4, can't be countered, protection from blue. And you can pay green to give it your choice of reach, trample, or haste until end of turn. Siren Storm Tamer. Oh, I hated this card in standard. That deck, that deck made me so angry. 1 blue for a 1/1 flyer with pay a blue, sacrifice it, counter target spell that targets a creature you control. Kiora Behemoth Beckoner. 2 green-blue hybrid for a 7 loyalty planeswalker. Whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters, you draw a card, and then you can remove a loyalty to untap a permanent. Argol's Bloodfast, which is one of the flip enchantments from Ixalan, 1 and a black for a legendary enchantment. You can pay 1 and a black, pay 2 life, draw a card. Enemy of your upkeep, if you have 5 or less life, you can transform it. And on the other side, it's a land that you can tap it for black, or tap in sacrifice a creature to gain life equal to sacrifice creature's toughness. Direfleet Daredevil, which is a 1 red for a 2/1 first strike that basically lets you snapcaster a card from an opponent's graveyard. That card's really cool. Pale's End, 1 and a blue, counter target activated ability, triggered ability, or legendary spell. It's a funny counter spell, but I thought that stifles are fun to include in cubes. I think they have a lot of cool niche.
There are a lot of legendary spells in this cube, and also a lot of planeswalkers that you can counter the activated abilities of.
Oh, yeah, very true. And then we have Vraska's Contempt, 2 black, exile target creature or planeswalker, you gain 2 life. Speaking of when a standard has only a limited number of removal spells, 4 mana for a hero's downfall, basically, that gains life and exiles. Man, this card is not very good. But this
And
card,
hilariously, this was the best removal in standard for 6 months.
yeah, it's just funny how when there's a standard format and you only have so few limited options, you got to play the removal that's given to you. This card would not see any play now.
No, you're dead on turn 4. You can't play this.
I have it as my Rakdos cube because it's like it's fun to have a little bit of exile removal, but it's still not very good, I'll be honest. And then we have Oath of Kaya for 1 white-black, legendary enchantment. When it enters, deal 3 to any target, you gain 3. Some good old Orzhov burn. And whenever an opponent attacks a planeswalker you control with 1 or more creatures, it deals 2 damage to that player and you gain 2. Mask of Immolation, 1 in a red, artifact equipment. These are some of the first equipment that I feel like that auto attached around this time,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. You get a 1/1 red elemental and you attach that to Mask of Immolation. And the equipped creature has sacrificed this creature, deal 1 damage to a target. Arboreal Grazer, green, 0/3 reach, great card in Amulet Titan. When it enters, you can put a land from your hand on the battlefield tapped. Glacial Fortress, white-blue check land. Jace Wielder of Mystery, which is a lab man effect, 1 blue planeswalker. If you draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win. And you can +1 to have somebody mill 2 and you draw, or -8, draw 7. Then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. Okay, judge question for you. Why
Yes.
does this card have, then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game?
It's so that if you activate it when it's at 8 loyalty, when the state-based effects will put it in the graveyard before the ability resolves.
Oh, that makes
So it
so
needs
much
to-
more sense.
So it needs to have the last line in there so you still win the game at that point.
Oh, so you can -8 and it'll go to the grave and then you can still win. Oh, I
Yes.
like having a judge. We need more judges on this show. I can ask all my silly questions. And then lastly, we have Circuitous Root, 3 and a green for explosive vegetation that can also find gates. What do you think of this pack?
This is I would say, like slightly weaker than average pack, though not terribly so. There are definitely options here. Arugal's Bloodfast is like, that was one of the last cards I put in the cube. And then every time I've seen somebody play it, I'm like, oh, that card's really good. So, like, that's definitely an option. I think if you wanted to play sort of green ramp, I would take Grazer or Kiora. They're both very good. But weirdly, despite having talked about how bad it is, I'm actually would first pick Vraska's Contempt here.
Oh,
Because the removal in this cube is so bad and so rare. And I'm like, yeah, 2 boo exile anything, including planeswalkers, or 2 black rather. Yeah, that's what I'm taking here.
it's not bad. And also gain some life. Hey.
Yeah.
Arguel's Bloodfast is funny. I used to play that card so much in Commander before Commander got so power crept that it's like completely unrecognizable from when I used to play a lot of Commander. Yeah. So in this pack, I'm looking at a couple cards. Kiora, Behemoth Beckoner. Just seems like a great card. It's so hard to kill this card. It comes down with 7 loyalty, and then it draws a bunch of cards. That card's great. Also, honestly, Circuitous Root. If I'm going into a cube that I know that 5 color is the thing, and explosive vegetation that can also get duels, I mean, that's not bad at all. I kind of like that. And Jace Wielder of Mysteries is very tempting to just kind of go all in and take this Planeswalker and like go for like basically like we talked about the counter spells, draw a lot of cards, be like a control deck that's very heavy blue. I think that I'm on Jace. I think that just sounds fun.
So the problem with taking Jace is that this cube has like 10 4 and 5 mana very powerful planeswalkers. You don't need to take one this early.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like what you were just saying about that. This is a cube that I feel like it's good to look at the list before you play it, because why would you take Vraska's Contempt early? I feel like if you were just going into this cube
Yeah.
without knowledge or having looked at the list, you might never consider taking that card first because you would assume, oh, there's got to be better removal than this. But if there's not,
There's
it's
really
good to
not.
know the environment. Very cool. Well, definitely everyone leave a comment or let us know what you would take from this pack. So, Anna, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great having you on. Anything you want to say before we wrap up here?
Thanks for having me. It was great to be on the show.
Oh, yeah, of course, definitely. And I hope you all have a great day. Please like, subscribe, follow. We'll see you all next week and have a good one.